Sometimes the whole conversation changes before a single word is spoken aloud. Their eyes pause on yours for half a second too long, then suddenly lock somewhere else. Nothing obvious happened, but your body already knows something in the moment just tightened. You may have felt this at dinner, at work, on dates, or during harmless conversations. The sentence sounds normal, yet the space around it feels strangely sharp and colder. You know that strange moment when someone stays present, but something inside them quietly leaves. Most people call it awkwardness and move on before asking why it felt so heavy. But awkwardness is usually messy and visible, while this feels cleaner, faster, almost hidden. The real shift often happens before the words, inside a tiny break in eye contact. And once you notice that break, the whole moment starts making uncomfortable sense. Their eyes do not freeze because nothing is happening inside them right then. They freeze because something inside them hits friction before they can manage their expression. It might be discomfort, attraction, fear, shame, resentment, confusion, or a memory they never expected. Whatever it is, the eyes react early because the body edits slower than language. That is why you can feel something shift before you can explain anything clearly. Your mind is not catching facts first because it is catching mismatch instead. A face says stay calm, but the eyes say something else just moved underneath. A voice sounds steady, but the gaze goes still like it met resistance. A smile appears, but it arrives a beat late and never reaches full warmth. What unsettles you is rarely the sentence itself, but the emotional lag around it. That lag matters because human beings read danger, distance, and doubt to timing. We feel safest when signals line up, and words, eyes, breath, and tone move together. When those signals split apart, your nervous system stops relaxing, even if nothing dramatic happens. That is why a tiny stare, pause, or glance away can stay with you. You have probably replayed moments like this later, wondering why they kept echoing. The reason is simple, even if the feeling is not at all. Your body noticed a private reaction before the other person turned it into a public one. Sometimes they recover quickly and keep speaking like nothing happened at all. But your brain does not forget the flicker because flickers often reveal the real story. Not the final story, and not perfect truth, but the first honest draft. One common mistake is believing these moments mean absolutely nothing unless someone confesses something. Another mistake is believing every frozen glance proves deception, rejection, or hidden hostility. Both reactions miss the deeper point, which is emotional movement happening faster than explanation. These moments are clues, not verdicts, and that difference changes everything afterward. A clue asks what shifted inside them right there, in that exact second. A verdict decides who they are, and that is where people become paranoid. The useful middle ground is quieter, sharper, and much more human anyway. You notice the break, then you watch whether the rest of them catches up. If the eyes froze but the tone softened, the tension may be fear. If the eyes froze and the smile stayed fixed, it may be guardedness. If the eyes froze and the answer came late, conflict probably entered the room. The deepest signal is usually not the stare itself, but what follows right after. That is where hidden reactions either settle down or expose a bigger mismatch. Think about the moment you give someone a sincere compliment and their eyes go still. They say thank you, but the pause before it feels oddly thick. You may have felt warmth disappear for a second, even though the words were polite. That reaction can happen when praise touches insecurity before it lands as comfort. The frozen eyes are not rudeness there, but emotional processing under pressure. Part of them wants the compliment, while another part does not trust it. So the face stalls for a beat because two feelings arrive together. Now think about asking a simple question and watching someone glance away too quickly. Maybe you asked if they were okay or whether something felt off. The answer says no, everything is fine, but the eyes already broke formation. That does not automatically mean lying because exposure often felt too close. Your question touched something they were still trying to keep internally organized. People look away fast when the truth feels unfinished, not only when it is false. There is a difference between hiding and not being ready yet emotionally. The eyes often reveal that difference before the mouth chooses a safer sentence. Then there is the conversation that seems normal until silence enters at the wrong place. You say something ordinary, maybe even kind, and suddenly the air stops moving. They are still there, still facing you, yet the moment feels emotionally abandoned. This is one of the strongest versions because silence leaves room for your instincts. With no immediate explanation, your mind starts reading the missing information from their face. And if the eyes froze just before the silence, that missing information feels personal. Sometimes it is shame rising after a harmless comment touched something private they were protecting. Sometimes it is anger being swallowed because the social setting does not permit honesty. Sometimes it is attraction mixed with uncertainty, which can look almost identical from outside. That is why these moments feel so intense, because different emotions can wear the same mask. The frozen look is not a label but a pressure point instead. And pressure points matter because they tell you where the emotional weight actually sits. You can feel it before words appear because your mind tracks shifts, not speeches. It watches the eyes narrow, stall, harden, or go strangely empty for a beat. It notices when attention snaps away like the person suddenly needed distance from you. It notices when they blink less, as if holding themselves together became urgent. It notices when their expression stays friendly, but their gaze stops cooperating. None of that proves a single motive, but it absolutely signals inner movement. And inner movement is exactly what makes a conversation feel suddenly heavier than expected. Most people get this wrong by treating discomfort like something imaginary unless words confirm it. But words are often the slowest part of social truth to arrive. People feel, resist, edit, suppress, and protect long before they explain anything. That is not manipulation every time, but sometimes just being human under pressure. What you sensed was not magic, and it was not weakness either. It was your mind catching a mismatch between the performed moment and the real one. That is why these interactions linger longer than obviously bad conversations sometimes. Obvious tension ends cleanly because everyone knows what happened and can place it somewhere mentally. Hidden tension keeps echoing because your mind keeps trying to name what never got admitted. So next time this happens, notice the timing before you notice the meaning. Did the eyes freeze before your words finished, or only after they answered? If the reaction appears early, you are probably seeing emotion, not strategy. Strategy usually takes a second, while emotion often arrives immediately and then gets managed. Timing alone can tell you whether the moment was constructed or simply leaked. Then notice the direction of the eyes because direction changes the emotional meaning. Looking down often carries a different feeling than looking sideways or past your shoulder. Down can suggest shame, overwhelm, or vulnerability touching the surface too fast. Sideways can suggest caution, calculation, or checking for safety before revealing anything. A hard look past you can feel colder because it creates instant distance. None of these meanings are perfect, but direction gives texture to the silence. Then notice whether the face agrees with the eyes or quietly argues against them. A person can smile while their gaze pulls away like contact suddenly became expensive. They can sound warm while their eyes flatten, which often means tension is being covered. They can answer smoothly while the blink pattern shifts, revealing effort beneath the calm. Facial mismatch matters because people can guide words more easily than reflexes. The body usually leads first through rhythm, stillness, or the eyes refusing to flow. That does not mean you should confront every strange pause like an investigator. It means you can respect what you sensed without turning it into accusation. Sometimes the wisest response is simply slowing down and giving the moment more air. When people feel cornered, their signals get harsher and harder to read. When people feel space, their hidden reaction sometimes turns into honest language. That is another thing people miss, because frozen eyes are often a beginning, not an ending. The moment feels sharp because you are catching the first crack in the surface. Sometimes that crack opens into honesty once the person feels safe enough to stop managing themselves. Sometimes it closes immediately and you are left holding only the strange feeling. That unfinished feeling is powerful because humans deeply hate unresolved social signals. We would almost rather hear a difficult truth than stand inside unexplained tension. But unexplained tension is exactly where hidden reactions live for a few seconds. And those few seconds can change how safe, seen, or welcome you feel. You may have felt small after them, even when nobody said anything cruel. You may have felt confused because the interaction looked normal from the outside. You may have doubted yourself for noticing, especially if everyone else seemed relaxed. But the discomfort was not imaginary because your system was reading misalignment in real time. You were sensing a person trying to stay socially smooth while something in them caught. That is why the eyes mattered so much, because they paused at the point of conflict. Not because they exposed the whole truth, but because they exposed the struggle. And struggle is often what your body recognizes first in another human being. That recognition can feel unsettling, but it can also make you more compassionate. Instead of assuming the worst, you can ask what pressure might have crossed them. Instead of calling yourself sensitive, you can trust that sensitivity was giving you information. And instead of chasing certainty, you can learn to read patterns with humility. That is the real skill here, noticing emotional truth early instead of decoding people perfectly. You sense something shift, then you stay curious enough to see what follows. Because what follows tells you whether the moment was fear, defense, longing, or shame. And that makes you less naive, less self-doubting, and less easy to emotionally confuse. If you have noticed a reaction like this in real life, trust that it mattered. Maybe not as proof, and not as a full answer, but as a signal. A signal that something emotional passed through the room before anyone named it. That is why some conversations feel finished on the surface and unfinished in your chest. Your memory holds them because your system is still waiting for emotional alignment. Once you understand that, the discomfort becomes information instead of turning into self-blame. You stop asking why you were so affected by something that looked so small. Small moments can carry huge emotional data when someone's control slips for a second. And once you see that pattern, you start trusting your quiet perceptions more. Those are the moments Novi mind is built to help you understand. So tell me the strangest eye reaction you have ever noticed and never forgot. Subscribe if you want more of the hidden psychology most people feel but miss. And in the next video, we are getting into the smile that appears too late.